My beloved brothers and sisters, sometimes Allah allows us to love someone even though they were never meant to stay in our life. And it leaves us heartbroken, confused, wondering, why would Allah let me love them if they were only going to walk away? But you see, not every love is meant to stay forever. Some are meant to teach you, some are meant to return you to Allah, because love itself was part of your test. Sometimes Allah places a person in your life not to stay, but to test the state of your heart. Not to complete your story, but to show you what your heart is made of. And you don't always see it at first, because when love begins, it feels like a gift, a relief, a dua finally answered. And you tell yourself, this must be it, this is the one. But the truth is, not every gift is meant to stay. Some gifts are sent for a moment, not for forever. And when they leave, it hurts deeply. Because it's not just their presence you miss, it's the meaning they brought into your life. You remember the late night talks, the excitement of hoping, the way you carried their name in every sujood, like a secret only Allah knew. You did it the right way. You prayed, you waited, you asked for guidance. You asked Allah to protect the love, and still it ended. And now you're sitting there with your hands trembling, wondering, Ya Allah, why? Why let me feel so deeply if you knew they were always going to leave? But that question is the doorway to the real lesson. You see, Allah sometimes places love in your path, not as a destination, but as a direction. Not to give you a person, but to bring your soul back to Him. Because nothing tests the heart like giving it to someone only to watch them walk away with it. And in that moment, when you feel like you've lost everything, Allah is watching, not in anger, not in disappointment, but in gentle silence, waiting to see if you'll still return to Him the way you used to before they arrived. That is the real test. Sometimes it takes a heartbreak to reveal how attached you became to a human being more than the one who created them. And it's not your fault. You're human. You loved with sincerity. You meant well. And Allah does not blame you for having a soft heart. But when that love becomes louder than your remembrance, when you begin to check your phone more than you check your soul, when you begin to build your future around a person instead of prayer, that's when Allah steps in. Not to punish you, but to save you. You think He's taking something away, but really, He's giving you a chance to come back. Because the truth is, love is a beautiful feeling, but it's also a powerful mirror. It shows you where your heart stands. And sometimes it shows you how far your heart drifted. Allah lets that love enter your life, not to ruin you, but to reveal you, to test. Will you still remember Him when the one you thought you couldn't live without is no longer beside you? Will you still cry to Him, not for the person to return, but for your connection with Him to be restored? And if you do, if you turn your heartbreak into a doorway to Allah, then that love, that loss, that pain, it becomes the very reason your soul wakes up. It becomes the thing that breaks you, only to rebuild you softer, wiser, closer to Allah than you've ever been. So don't think the love was a mistake. Don't think the time you spent was wasted. Don't curse your heart for being sincere, because Allah sees the love you gave, and when it's sincere, He always uses it to bring you closer, even if that means He has to take the person away. And I know that hurts. I know it doesn't feel fair. I know it feels like the one thing that gave you hope is now the thing that shattered you. But that's only because you're looking at it from this side of the story. What you can't see is what Allah protected you from. What you don't know is what He's preparing you for. The love was never wasted. It was written, it was witnessed, and it was part of the journey that brought you here right now, in this moment of pain, where your heart is cracked wide open and finally ready to return. Because when the love disappears and you find yourself crying on a prayer mat again, not for a person but for peace, that's when you'll realize you didn't lose. You were redirected. You were chosen for something higher. And the one who allowed your heart to feel is the same, one who will heal it. So breathe, let it go slowly. And whisper to your Lord the one thing that matters most. Ya Allah, don't let this pain go to waste. Use it to bring me back to you. Because your soul needed to awaken. You thought it was a blessing. You told yourself, it finally feels right. You smiled differently. You slept peacefully. You thanked Allah from the depths of your heart. Because finally, after all the patience, the silence, the du'as, someone showed up. And they made you feel seen. You thought, this must be the one. This must be what I was waiting for. And because you were sincere, you didn't fall into haram. You didn't want temporary excitement. You wanted something pure, something sacred. You asked Allah to bless it. You made istikhara. You cried in sujood. You said, Ya Allah, if it's good for me, bring it closer. And if it's not, take it away. But what hurt was that it came closer and then it left. It felt like a door opened just long enough for you to walk in and then slammed shut before you could understand why. And now you're sitting there, confused, exhausted, quietly saying, I thought this was the blessing. I thought you gave me a sign. But sometimes what looks like a blessing is really a distraction wearing a disguise. Not every arrival is a gift. Not every comfort is safe. Not every connection is clean. You see, when Allah loves you, He doesn't just give you what looks good. He protects you from what blocks what's truly good. And sometimes the thing you were holding on to, the thing that felt like peace, was actually pulling you away from Him, little by little, not in a loud, obvious way, but in subtle ways your heart didn't notice. Maybe your prayers got rushed. Maybe your focus shifted. Maybe your heart started depending on someone else's replies more than Allah's mercy. And that's when Allah stepped in, not to punish you, but to protect you. Because the worst kind of heartbreak is the one that feels like a blessing on the outside, but slowly drains your soul from the inside. You were about to anchor your heart to something temporary, something uncertain, something that could never carry your future. And Allah in His mercy saw what you couldn't see. He saw the cracks forming behind their smile. He saw the tests coming down the road. He saw the way they would change, or how you might change while chasing them. And so even though it hurt, He took it away. He broke the illusion not to break you, but to wake you. Because some blessings arrive only to distract you from the one thing that matters. Your relationship with the one who never leaves. You were so close to handing your peace over to a person, so close to placing your worth in someone else's eyes, so close to wrapping your identity around us instead of grounding it in Him. And when Allah saw your heart slipping, He gently or sometimes painfully reminded you, not this one, not now, not this way. And yes, it feels cruel in the moment, because love makes you hopeful. It makes you dream. It makes you imagine a life where things finally feel whole. But if it was truly a blessing, it would have brought you closer to Allah, not further. It would have made your deen stronger, not weaker. It would have brought you clarity, not confusion. Peace, not emotional chaos. Gratitude, not addiction to attention. So when Allah removes something you thought was your blessing, He's not saying you can't be loved. He's saying, not like this, not by them, not in a way that risks your soul. He's saying, you are too valuable to settle for what distracts you from me. And the most painful part, you didn't see it until it was gone. Only after the door closed did you begin to notice how much your heart was drifting, how dependent you became, how distracted your soul had grown. And now, you're waking up. You're remembering that blessings from Allah don't make you forget Him. They don't shake your identity. They don't make your emotions feel like a storm every day. A real blessing brings sakoon. A real blessing doesn't just feel good, it does good. It brings you back to yourself, back to your values, back to your Lord. So maybe this thing you lost wasn't the blessing after all. Maybe the real blessing was Allah saving you from the heartbreak that would have happened later had He not ended it now. And maybe this pain you're carrying now, this ache, this silence, this confusion isn't a punishment. It's protection, it's purification, it's preparation. Because Allah never takes something from you except to give you something purer in return. And that return might not be a person. It might be peace. It might be clarity. It might be a version of you that you never would have found if He hadn't removed what was distracting you. So yes, it felt like a blessing, but Allah knew it wasn't. And when He removes a false blessing, He's not taking your joy. He's clearing the path for something real, something written, something rooted, something that will feel like home, not just to your heart, but to your soul. So trust Him, trust what He took, and trust what He's still preparing. Because what you thought was a blessing was really just a detour. And now, Allah is finally calling you back home because you fell in love with the future, not the reality. You didn't just love them, you loved what you saw with them. The late night conversations, the plans you started forming quietly in your heart, the vision of walking through life side by side, building something beautiful, something lasting. It wasn't just them you were attached to. It was the story you began writing in your imagination. A story where they stayed. A story where it all worked out. And now that they're gone, it's not just the person you're grieving. It's the future that never happened. That's what makes it harder. Because it's not just their absence that aches. It's the emptiness of all the what could have been. You miss the version of life you thought was finally arriving. The conversations about marriage, the peaceful walks, the way your name sounded next to theirs in dua. You had pictured the Ramadan together, the dreams, the healing, the becoming. But Allah saw what you didn't. He saw that this future you built in your heart was made of imagination, not reality. And when you fall in love with a version of someone that only exists in your mind, you risk missing the signs Allah is showing you in real life. You overlook the red flags. You silence your instincts. You force it to feel right because it looks right in your dream. But your dream is not qadr. And Allah in His mercy won't let your heart stay chained to a future that isn't written for you. Because if it was written, it wouldn't have left. You see, sometimes the person isn't wrong. They just don't fit the version of life Allah has prepared for your soul. And no matter how much you love your plan, You must learn to love His decree more. You thought you loved them, but maybe you loved who they could have been, not who they actually were. You saw potential, growth, change, and you kept thinking just a little more patience, just a little more time. But time doesn't turn a maybe into a written, and effort doesn't rewrite qadr. Allah knew that if He let it continue, you would have built your life on the hope of who they might become and not the truth of who they were. And one day, that would have broken you more. So He ended it now. Before the papers, before the marriage, before the deeper attachment, He broke what you were building, not to destroy your hope, but to correct the direction of your heart. You fell in love with a dream, but Allah's mercy removes anything that blocks you from the reality He has written. And yes, you may still cry over it. You may still wake up wondering, what if it had worked? But the truth is, if it could have worked, it would have. If they were meant to walk beside you in this life, you wouldn't be reading this now with a heart heavy and hands empty. So stop blaming your sincerity. Stop punishing yourself for dreaming. You had a beautiful heart. You wanted something good, and Allah saw that. But sometimes He breaks the fantasy so you don't waste years chasing a shadow. He removes the wrong future. So your hands are free when the right one finally arrives, because the future you imagined with them was never yours. It was an illusion, a soft comfort that hid the reality Allah was trying to wake you from. And when you love something that doesn't exist, you begin to lose yourself. You settle, you compromise, you shrink parts of yourself just to keep a hope alive that was already dying. Allah ended it, not because you were wrong to love, but because you were loving a direction He never planned to take you in. You didn't fail. You just arrived at a dead-end road, and Allah turned you around. And one day, maybe not now, but one day, you look back and whisper, Ya Allah, thank you for not letting that dream come true. Because what He's preparing won't just look like a blessing. It will be one in reality, not just imagination. So breathe. Let go of the version of life that only existed in your heart. And trust that Allah doesn't let anything go unless it was blocking what was truly meant for you. You didn't just lose a person. You lost a fantasy. And in return, you're being returned to reality, to truth, to something that won't require you to dream it into existence, because it will exist on its own, written, real, and entirely yours, because you were loving with an unprotected heart. You loved with your whole heart, and you didn't hide it. You didn't play games. You didn't measure every word, every gesture. You gave them space in your life and in your prayers without hesitation, because that's who you are. You weren't pretending. You weren't performing. You were sincere. And that sincerity was your strength, but it was also your vulnerability. Because when you love with an unguarded heart, when you love without a shield, every disappointment feels like a dagger. And now, here you are, trying to understand how someone could walk away from love that was so real, so honest, so pure. But you need to understand this. Sincerity isn't always protection. And a clean heart doesn't guarantee that others will treat it with care. Sometimes we give parts of our heart that only Allah was meant to carry, not because we're reckless, but because we're soft, because we believe in people, because we want something real and assume they do too. And somewhere along the way, you placed them too close to your center. You made them the reason you smiled in the morning. You let your mood rise and fall based on how they responded. You built your calm around their presence. And slowly, you forgot that real calm only comes from Allah. This isn't to blame you. It's to remind you your heart was never meant to be left wide open without protection. Because in this world, not everyone knows how to handle a soul like yours. You weren't wrong for loving deeply, but love without boundaries becomes surrender. And Allah never asked you to surrender to anyone except Him. That's why it hurt so much when they left. Because they weren't just a person. They had become a pillar, a source of stability, a quiet addiction. And now, with them gone, everything feels like it's collapsing. You're not just grieving them. You're grieving the part of yourself that felt safe with them. But maybe that's why Allah took them away. Not to shame your softness, not to make you hard, but to call you back to the one place your heart was always supposed to rest, with Him. You see, when we attach too tightly to creation, Allah gently or painfully reminds us of the danger, because what you place at the center of your heart will always control your peace. And if it isn't Allah, your peace will always be unstable. Yes, you made dua. Yes, you asked for guidance. But sometimes we ask for Allah's help while already placing all our hope in the person. We don't wait for clarity. We chase our emotions. We ignore the signs. We mistake obsession for certainty. And Allah, out of mercy, removes what we wouldn't remove ourselves. He sees the version of you that's coming, the one that stands stronger, prays deeper, lives clearer, and He knows that version of you could never rise if He let you stay wrapped around someone who didn't protect your heart like He does. So He allowed the break to bring you back. He allowed the ache to unclench your hands from what you were gripping too tightly. Because when you hand someone your heart without checking if they're written for you, you risk handing them the power to break what only Allah can repair. And that's why the pain feels spiritual, because it is. This wasn't just a breakup, it was a divine realignment. It was Allah gently telling you, I was always supposed to be here, not them. And now as you rebuild yourself, you learn to love differently. You'll still be soft but not naive. You'll still be kind but guarded with your heart. You'll give but not without remembering who your ultimate refuge is. Because the next time you love, you won't hand your heart away without asking Allah to protect it first. You'll give it with conditions, that it brings you closer to your Deen, that it strengthens your character, that it never replaces your connection with the one who created love in the first place. And most importantly, you'll keep part of your heart reserved only for the one who never leaves. So don't regret loving. Regret only that you forgot to protect your soul while loving. And let this be your turning point. Let it be the pain that taught you how to hold your heart gently, but never hand it away recklessly again, because your heart is a gift, a sacred trust, and not everyone who asks for it is worthy of it. Let Allah be the one to decide who holds it next, because when He chooses for you, your love will never need protection. It will come wrapped in peace, because qadr is not measured by your effort. You prayed, you waited. You made dua when nobody else knew. You kept it halal. You put your trust in Allah. You stayed patient. You gave your best. And still, it ended. They left. The door closed. The story stopped before the ending you imagined ever began. And now, you're sitting there in silence, confused, asking yourself the same question again and again. But I did everything right. Why didn't it work? And here's the part that hurts even more. They didn't do what you did. They weren't as sincere. They didn't fight for it like you did. They let go easily. While you're still sitting in sujood, carrying their name in your prayer. And that's what makes it feel unfair. But I want you to listen to this and hold it tightly. Qadr is not a reward for effort. It's not a transaction. It's not a system of, if I try hard enough, I get what I want. Qadr is written by Allah, not based on how much you gave, but based on what He knows is best for your soul. You see, we were taught to try, to do our part, to take every step with sincerity. And you did. But sometimes, even your best effort doesn't change the ending. Not because it wasn't good enough, but because Allah has something better written than the thing you were fighting to hold on to. We confuse success with outcome. We think if it works, it means Allah accepted our effort. And if it breaks, it means we failed. But that's not how Allah works. Because with Him, nothing sincere is ever wasted. You weren't being tested to win that person. You were being tested to worship in the process. And worship is never wasted. Your du'as are written. Your patience is written. Your quiet nights of heartbreak seen. Your silent loyalty witnessed. Every step you took with integrity is stored with Allah. Even if the outcome was not what you hoped. Because sometimes Allah doesn't test your effort to give you what you want. He tests your heart to give you what you need. Maybe what you wanted was a person. But what your soul needed was healing, growth, redirection, a deeper return to Allah. And Allah will always choose your soul over your fantasy. You thought the story would end with you both together, but Allah saw something you couldn't. He saw the long road ahead. He saw what kind of person you'd become if He let it continue. He saw the weakness it would create, the dependence, the slow drift away from Him, the one you didn't even realize was happening. So He took it, not because you didn't try hard enough, but because He loves you too much to let your effort become your ruin. You don't need to be angry at Qadr. You don't need to say, what was the point? Because the point was never just to get what you wanted. The point was to become someone who turns to Allah through love, through pain, through every unknown. And that's exactly what you became. Your heart broke, but you're still praying. You're still whispering His name through tears. You're still waking up and choosing to trust again. And that is what Allah wanted to build in you. Because what you wanted was a relationship, but what Allah wanted was your transformation. He wanted to peel away the part of you that thought effort alone controls destiny. He wanted to remind you that control belongs to Him, always. So don't look at the ending as proof that you weren't enough. Look at the sincerity you showed and know that in Allah's eyes, you were more than enough. But they weren't written. And no amount of effort can change what isn't written. Just like no amount of distance can stop what is. This isn't failure. It's divine protection. Sometimes Allah closes a door that you tried everything to keep open. So you learn that it was never your effort holding it in place. It was His wisdom allowing it to stay just long enough for you to grow, and then removing it before it became a trap. And one day you'll thank Him for not letting it work, because what's coming won't need you to try this hard to keep it. It will be written. Effort will meet ease, patience will meet peace, and your heart will finally rest without forcing, begging, or breaking. So tonight, hold your hands up to the one who wrote your story. Tell Him, Ya Allah, I tried my best, I did it for you. I accept what you've written, even if I don't understand it yet. And know this, when Allah sees your sincerity, He never leaves you empty-handed. What's written for you is not late. It's just waiting for the version of you that doesn't attach effort to outcome, but attaches love to submission. And that is when qadr becomes your peace, not your pain, because they were sent to teach, not to stay. They came into your life like a quiet sunrise, soft, sudden, you didn't even see it coming. But once they were there, everything started to feel a little brighter. You laughed more. You hoped more. You allowed yourself to believe again. And maybe for the first time in a long time, you felt seen, heard, chosen. You thought, maybe this is the person Allah sent to finally stay. But then just like that, they left. Not with drama, not with closure, just distance, silence, and space that keeps echoing. And you're sitting there whispering to Allah, why would you let them come into my life if they were never meant to stay? Because deep down, you weren't just building a connection, you were building a future. And now, that future is empty. The road you thought you were walking together, you're walking alone. But my dear brother, my dear sister, sometimes Allah allows a person to enter your life, not to stay forever, but to teach your soul something it would never have learnt alone. Not everyone is meant to be your home. Some people are meant to be your doorway, a hallway, a mirror. They don't come to complete your story. They come to rearrange it, to shift something inside you that you didn't even know was asleep. Maybe they were sent to teach you how deep you can feel, how loyal you really are, how patient your soul can become when you love for the sake of Allah. Or maybe they were sent to expose the cracks in your foundation, the wounds you were hiding under busyness, silence, and distraction. Sometimes Allah sends a person to reflect you back to yourself. Through them, you see your softness, your fear, your dependency, your hidden insecurities, your untapped strength. They awaken something. And once the lesson is planted, once the mirror has done its job, Allah removes them not to hurt you, but to complete what they were sent to do. And I know that feels cruel. It feels unfair. You say, but I was just starting to heal. Why would you let them leave now? Because their job wasn't to finish your healing. It was to begin it. They were never meant to be the answer. They were the question, a divine question sent by Allah that shook your heart. So you'd finally turn inward. So you'd finally turn upward. Not every beautiful soul is meant to walk beside you forever. Some are sent to walk beside you just long enough to show you where you were limping. And once you see it, once you feel it, once you've grown from it, their presence is no longer needed. Because the purpose was never permanence. It was preparation. You think it ended too soon. But Allah never removes someone until their role in your story is complete. You're mourning the time lost, but Allah is recording the wisdom gained. You're counting the days they stayed, but Allah is counting the lessons you learned. So stop asking why they left and start asking what they left behind. Did you discover a new part of yourself? Did you fall back into deeper sujood? Did you uncover a strength you forgot was there? That's why they came. And once they fulfilled it, Allah in His mercy pulled them away, because keeping them longer would have caused more harm. It would have become dependency or distraction or disobedience. What began as healing could have turned into your destruction if Allah didn't step in. So He removed them not because you weren't enough, not because your love was lacking, but because the lesson was complete. And I know you still miss them. You still remember their smile, the way they made you feel like the pain finally had purpose. But maybe that's exactly what they were sent for, to be the pain that unlocked your purpose. to be the bridge that took you from where you were to where Allah needs you to be. So don't hate the memory. Don't curse the time. Don't let the ending erase the beauty of the chapter. Just remember, they were sent to teach, not to stay. They were written in your story, but not in your ending. And that's okay, because now, the version of you that's rising is stronger, softer, wiser, closer to Allah than you've ever been. They were not your forever. They were your awakening. And the one who allowed them to enter your life for a season will not leave you empty in the next one, because you needed to be redirected back to Allah. Sometimes Allah doesn't let something stay in your life because it was taking you away from Him. Not in a loud, dramatic way, but slowly, quietly, without you even realizing it. You started building your peace around them. Started planning your future with their name written in every corner. Your heart began checking their messages more than it checked in with your Lord. You woke up thinking of them. You fell asleep making dua about them. And somewhere along the way, you didn't notice how far you had drifted. Not in sin, but in direction. You were still praying, but the longing had changed. You were still making dua, but your heart was clinging to them more than it was relying on Allah. And Allah, who loves you more than anyone ever will, watched it happen. He watched your heart attach. He watched your dreams bend around someone who was never written for your destination. And when it became too much, when the pull of the dunya became stronger than your pull toward Him, He stepped in. He didn't let it continue. He removed the person. He ended the story. He silenced the noise so you could hear the whisper of your soul again. Because Allah knew if He let you have what you wanted, you would have slowly forgotten the one who gifted you the ability to feel love in the first place. You thought they were your peace. But peace that makes you forget the source is not peace at all. You thought they were your answer. But Allah never sends an answer that pulls you further away from Him. So yes, He took it away, but He did it out of love. Because losing something that was making you forget Allah is a mercy, not a punishment. You weren't being punished for loving. You were being rescued from losing yourself in that love. Because you were starting to give them the place in your heart that was only meant for your Rabb. And only Allah knows how far you would have gone had He not stepped in to pull you back. So He closed the door. He ended the connection, not to break you, but to redirect you. Because sometimes you don't need closure. You need correction. And sometimes the person you thought would walk with you to Jannah was quietly pulling you off the path. So Allah, in His mercy, broke your heart to save your soul. He ended the chapter to reintroduce you to the one who never leaves. And look at you now. Yes, you're hurting. Yes, you still cry when no one's watching. Yes, the nights feel heavier. But your dua has changed. Your heart has softened. Your tears have turned inward. Your voice trembles again when you say, Ya Allah. That is not a loss. That is a return. You were so focused on finding the right person, you forgot to hold tightly to the one who writes all the stories. So Allah rewrote yours, not to embarrass you, not to punish you, but to guide you back to Him. And now, every sajda feels different. Every surah hits deeper. Every heartbreak feels like it has a purpose again. This is what it means to be redirected. You thought love would complete you, but only Allah can do that. You thought that person would bring you closer to yourself, but only Allah holds the mirror that shows you who you really are. And sometimes, you have to lose what you thought you couldn't live without, just to realize that the only one you ever truly needed was the one you forgot to hold first. This heartbreak is not the end. It's a beginning. It's your U-turn. It's your wake-up call. So don't ask Allah why He took them. Ask Him to show you what He's returning you to. Because maybe the loss of them is how you find Him again. And when you do, you'll realize you were never abandoned. You were rerouted back to sujood, back to trust, back to the kind of love that doesn't leave, the kind of love that isn't built on conditions, but on mercy, on closeness, on forgiveness, on Jannah. And one day, you will look back at this heartbreak, this ache,